They told us for 80 years that we couldn't handle the truth. They told us that the data was too complex, the sensors were too sensitive, and the secrets were too national security to ever see the light of day. Well, on Thursday, February 19th, 2026, President Donald Trump decided that the era of the deep state gatekeepers is officially over. Today, we are diving into the Transparency Directive, the president's massive new executive order to declassify everything the government has on UAPs and extraterrestrial life. But this isn't just about little green men. This is about a technical and logical overhaul of a broken system. We're looking at how Secretary of War Pete Hegseth is cleaning house, why the mainstream media is terrified of the actual data, and how a viral interview from Barack Obama earlier this month actually set the stage for the most transparent administration in American history. It is Saturday, February 21st, 2026, and we are finally pulling back the curtain on the most classified corners of the federal government. Classified corners of the federal government. If you're new here, I'm John Dre, and we're building a community of people who support our president and use facts and logic to prove it. We need voices like yours in this fight against emotional manipulation and bad faith rhetoric. So hit that subscribe button and stick around. Let's get right into the heart of it. 2 days ago, President Trump issued a directive that sent shockwaves through the Pentagon, or as we're calling it again, the Department of War. He ordered the Secretary of War and all agency heads to begin the process of identifying and releasing files related to unidentified anomalous phenomena and alien life. Now, if you listen to the left-wing media, they're either mocking this or they're trying to frame it as some kind of distraction. They want you to think this is just science fiction. But if you look at the facts, this is one of the most significant administrative challenges any president has ever taken on. This isn't just about opening a dusty filing cabinet and finding a photo of a flying saucer. The Transparency Directive is a direct hit on the source and method excuse that bureaucrats have used for decades to hide their work. You see, the real hurdle to declassification isn't always what is in the video, it's the sensor that caught it. For years, the intelligence community has argued that if they show us a clear video of a UAP, they're actually revealing the secret resolution of an F-35 sensor or the precise frequency of a Tier 1 satellite. President Trump is calling their bluff. He's essentially saying that the American people's right to know the truth about our skies outweighs the sensor secrecy that has protected these agencies from accountability. According to the research, we're dealing with what experts call a data multimodality problem. The public expects a high-definition photo, but the actual records are high-dimensional data. We're talking about AESA radar tracks showing trajectories that don't follow the laws of ballistics. We're talking about infrared signatures with no visible heat from propulsion. We're talking about sonar data showing objects moving from the air into the water without slowing down. Why is it being hidden? The liberal establishment loves to talk about transparency until it actually involves their own classified fiefdoms. Now, I want to address the AI angle here, because this is where it gets really interesting. In August of 2025, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO, held a workshop discussing how to use machine learning to sift through decades of noisy data. The challenge isn't just releasing the files, it's auditing them. We have thousands of hours of sensor records that are basically birds and balloons. The deep state would love to dump 1 million useless files on us and say, "There, we were transparent." But the Trump administration is pushing for the use of advanced models to separate the mundane from the truly anomalous. They are applying 2026 technology to solve a 1947 problem. We also have to look at the parallax effect. AARO's 2025 papers highlighted how what looks like hypervelocity is often just an optical illusion caused by the sensor moving relative to the object. The critics use this to say, see, it's all just a mistake. But the president's logic is better. Show us the data, show us the math, and let the American people and independent scientists decide. Don't just tell us nothing to see here while keeping the files locked in a vault. This is about ending the selection bias too. Most reports are concentrated around military testing ranges like the Virginia Capes or Southern California. Is that because UAPs love the Navy? Or is it because that's where our most advanced sensors are? By declassifying the broader data sets, we can finally see if this is a global phenomenon or a result of where we're looking. This isn't about aliens as much as it is about the declassification paradox. The president is forcing agencies to prove that releasing a file would cause genuine harm to national security, rather than just letting them invoke a blanket exemption. This is how you actually drain the swamp. You don't just fire people, you take away their ability to hide behind classified stamps. Think about the Kona Blue situation. There have been disputed claims of a Department of Homeland Security program meant to exploit non-human biologics, that AARO claims was proposed but never funded. Who do you trust? The agency investigating itself, or a president who says, put the documents on the table? President Trump knows that the American people are tired of being treated like children. Whether the data shows top-secret Chinese drones, natural phenomena, or something from another world, we have the right to know. This directive is a massive logistical undertaking, but it's the right thing to do for the country. But to get those files out, you need a department that's actually focused on its core mission. And that brings us to the biggest structural change in Washington in nearly 80 years. Last year, the world watched as President Trump reorganized the Department of Defense back to its original name, the Department of War. Now, at the time, the left went into a total meltdown. They called it aggressive, they called it dangerous, and they claimed it was a step backward. But let's use some logic here. When you call it defense, it becomes a sprawling, bloated bureaucracy that tries to hide every mistake under the guise of protecting the status quo. When you call it the Department of War, you're signaling a return to a specific, mission-oriented focus. And under Secretary Pete Hegseth, that mission includes radical accountability. The Department of War rebrand provides the administrative backdrop for this whole UAP shift. Under the old defense model, the reporting structure was a labyrinth. Files were buried in subcommittees and special access programs that even the secretary sometimes couldn't see. Secretary Hegseth has been clear. The Department of War exists to win conflicts and protect the homeland, and you can't do either if you're ignoring anomalies in your own airspace. The FY 2026 National Defense Authorization Act, or the NDAA, already requires AARO to brief Congress on intersects since 2004. But the president's new directive goes much further than just briefing a few politicians behind closed doors. One of the biggest problems we face is that much of the historical data from the 1970s and 80s is analog or poorly digitized. In the old defense bureaucracy, those files would have just been left to rot. They'd say it's too expensive or too difficult to verify them. But under the new Department of War structure, the focus is on technical excellence. They are treating these records like intelligence failures that need to be corrected. If there were objects in our airspace in 1978 that we couldn't identify, that is a failure of the mission. We need to know why. The media loves to point to Project Blue Book, the Air Force investigation that ran from 1947 to 1969. They'll tell you that most of those 12,000 cases were resolved as mundane. And they're right, but they always ignore the 5% that were unresolved. That 5% has fueled 60 years of skepticism and distrust in our institutions. President Trump and Secretary Hegseth are saying that 5% is unacceptable. By moving this under the Department of War, they are signaling that the unresolved category is no longer a place to hide. It's a problem to be solved. Compare this to the French GIPAN. In France, their space agency has a transparent, civilian-led office for these things. It works, It reduces conspiracy theories because the data is out there. Why should the United States be less transparent than France? The Department of War rebrand isn't just about a name change, it's about a culture change. It's about moving away from the defense of the deep state and moving toward the war on government secrecy. And speaking of culture changes, we have to talk about how we got here and the massive difference between a viral moment and actual presidential leadership. You probably saw the video earlier this month. Former President Barack Obama sat down for an interview, and in a moment that went totally viral, he stated that aliens are real. Now, he later clarified that he was talking about the statistical probability of life in a vast universe. It was classic Obama, smooth, eloquent, and ultimately, a whole lot of nothing. He spent 8 years in the White House. He had the same power President Trump has now. Did he issue a Transparency Directive? Did he order the declassification of censor data? No. He waited until he was a private citizen to make spooky comments for headlines. This is the difference between liberal rhetoric and conservative results. The left loves to tease progress. They love to hint at the truth to keep themselves relevant in the cultural conversation. But when it comes to actually taking on the original classification authorities, the OCAs, they fold. President Trump doesn't care about statistical probabilities. He cares about the files. While Obama is out there giving vibes about the universe, President Trump is giving orders to the Secretary of War. The media is trying to say that total disclosure won't happen overnight because of legal exemptions. And they're right. Declassification is tied to law. But for the first time, we have a president who is actually pushing back against those harm to national security excuses. Obama gave us words. Trump is giving us the data. Which one do you think is better for the American people? When you look at these three stories together, the picture becomes clear. The Transparency Directive isn't an isolated event. It is part of a broader logical push to return the government to the people. By rebranding the Department of War, the president has created the administrative muscle to actually enforce his declassification orders. And by taking action where previous presidents only offered viral moments, he is proving that he is the only one willing to take on the final frontier of government secrecy. The experts can argue about parallax and AESA radar tracks all they want. At the end of the day, this is about trust. Do you trust the deep state to keep secrets for your own good? Or do you trust yourself to see the evidence and make up your own mind? What do you think? Are you ready to see what's been hidden in those unresolved files for 80 years? Is the Department of War rebrand the key to finally getting the truth? Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts. Make sure you share this video with anyone who is tired of the government's "trust us, we're from the government" routine. I'm John Gray. Let's keep using logic to find the truth.